Hey, hey. I can hear you or can see you, but I can't hear you. There we go. Admit all. There we go. All right.
We got
Alex.
it.
Okay, Alex, you can hear me?
Yep, I can hear you fine. Can you hear me okay, Tom?
I can hear you great.
Hey, good to see you again. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. Sorry, we're a little bit late.
Oh,
I knew better than to book these back to back, but honestly, trying to get done on a Friday. No, we had some, literally the last session we had just dropped out about 35
oh no.
minutes in. So it took a minute or two to get back in and get everybody on the same page.
Gotcha.
Excellent. Um,
How many are we expecting? Do you know?
Half dozen or so.
Okay.
Fridays were I knew would be um, a little tough to get more people in. Um, but especially right now with every,
Sure.
we're all in getting ready for graduation mode.
Yeah.
That's
How are you guys handling that?
everybody's completely different.
Yeah. Like,
So we're doing every graduate one at a time, drive through kind of style. They're getting a number of cars that can load as many people as they want in the car, and then the car pulls up. The graduate will walk through the building because we've got a kind of memory lane thing set up for that.
right.
Walk across the stage. They'll have 3.5, 4 minutes, and then they got to bounce. And I had all these aspirations of taking the Tricaster up there and setting all that up, and then I went too risky. Just
Weather or
weather, and I just have it's the reason I quit doing weddings. You don't get a
oh,
second chance.
right.
So I just decided not to worry about it, and gonna just put it in a camera and come back and drop it in and go from there. Because yeah, it's gonna take 4 days on it, and that's the other reason.
Yeah.
We're doing every 4 minutes for 210 graduates. Takes a little while. I think everybody is here.
Okay.
Um,
I just want to check if you see on your list, is Jeremy Morris? Are you here? He's my coworker.
I see him.
Okay, cool. All right.
Yep.
Excellent.
So,
So I'm good to go when you guys are.
all
Just
right.
you.
Do you want me to pin you, or are you and Jeremy going to bounce back and forth? Oh, I lost you. I lost the video on you, Alex. Did I lose? Nope. There's Clark. How are you, buddy?
Good. How about yourself?
Doing well. Carol, Steve. There's Alex. He's back. He's muted. There he goes. All right. Steve, welcome back. Richard got in. Okay. Alex, do you want me to pin you, or are you and Jeremy going to bounce back and forth?
I'm not as familiar with Zoom as I am for Teams, so I'm going to handle the first part of the presentation and then probably hand it off to him. So what
Okay.
methodology works best for that?
So what I'll do is just mute everybody's, and then it'll go off of audio. So
Okay.
Cool. Well, everybody, Alex from New Tech is going to walk us through. Alex representing Learning Labs. Clark is in the chat as well, and we'll get some, I guess, from Clark in a bit. So I'll turn it over to you, buddy.
All right. Thanks very much, Tom. Thanks everybody for having us back in today. It's certainly different circumstances than what we had last year. But surprisingly, I think being able to combine the resources of myself and also my coworker, I'm Florida, and he is in Maryland, and to be able to bring this all to you remotely, it's really been showcasing the power of the things that we bring to the table. So rather than do the typical sort of dog and pony that we normally do, as far as just features and everything that Tricaster normally brings to the table, I was asked to do something that was a little bit more training oriented. I'm going to move my Zoom window down so that I can see the interface that I need to see in order to pull this off. But before I begin, I also want to extend a special thank you to Clark Cortman and the Learning Labs group for again working with you, Tom, and coordinating our availability to be here today. More than happy to do stuff like this. I personally am very fond of how our technology is used in educational environments, and I believe that it is very important in giving people skills to enter the workforce and make a good living, and be productive members of society. So that's great. All of our technology, of course, that we're talking about here today in its application is, of course, available through the Learning Labs group. So please be in touch with through Tom or directly with Clark for more information on how you can access pricing information and whatnot. All right, so let me change things up a little bit here. And I'm going to switch over to, there will be not too much death by PowerPoint, but a little bit here. So in the background, I've got my my PowerPoint slides set up. Preview, I'm going to go ahead and take that over to program, and then I believe just signal to me that you guys are seeing. Yes, you are seeing. I can see what you're seeing. So you're seeing the full PowerPoint there. So I just created this presentation, which I call Applications in Education with New Tech for 2020. So I thought rather than just talk about features at random, what I found last year in coming to talk to you guys, that really we had a number of different levels of people that are in the room. Some people that were just getting started with programs, or their schools might be considering a program, so it was kind of more of an exploratory. And then the second tier is obviously we had some different levels of veterans where people had access to our technology already, but maybe weren't taking full advantage of everything that Tricaster brings to the table. So this will be a little bit more instructional in terms of application of how things can be applied. And hopefully for those of you that don't have the technology, you'll be inspired by it and say, yeah, this is really the solution that I would like to get involved with. So let me come back over here. I'll be participating. My name again is Alex Udell. I'm the sales specialist from the South. Email on screen. And then I also have Jeremy Morris here, who's my counterpart, one from the team, and he lives in Maryland, basically handling Northeast from about Maryland up. So I thought a good way to start this would be to see, there is no I in team. Everybody is familiar with that old joke. But if I take that a step forward, what we can find out actually is that there is an I in Tricaster. And the reason why I point that out, as humorous as it may be or not be, maybe you don't find it funny at all, is that Tricaster, as a tool, from its inception, really has been designed to pack a lot of capabilities all into one platform, so that one person that's operating a Tricaster can do a heck of a lot. Essentially, in many cases, they can run an entire show. Now, that's kind of antithetical, or it runs against really what you as educators are trying to do. Typically, you're trying to train a group of people to work in concert as a team in more of a traditional, broadcast or web streaming type environment. So I thought that it would be good to go in this presentation and really focus on how we can extend out from what is the core hub of Tricaster out to an entire production team, but look at that in a couple of different ways you might apply this. So the first thing I thought I would tackle news, because I've had a little bit of news background, myself, and I find that a lot of times when I'm talking to schools that want to get involved with teaching production, really one of those things, particularly in all the way in K through 12, is a sort of a morning announcements or info news type applications, and so the model actually works really well here. And I thought the best way to begin that process is really to sort of look at what makes up the roles in a typical news crew. So if you're coming into this, you've just been handed the idea that this is something that your school wants to get into. Here's the roles that would normally be involved in a production, and then this is how our new technology can apply with some specifics. So typically, you've got the producer, or sometimes called the director. That's really the show caller, and this person's role in the whole production is they've probably sat at one point or another in all of the other roles that I'm going to show you and have some experience there. So during a typical production, they're going to say, okay, I know at this point we need to go to this camera, or I need to be getting ready some graphical material to bring on screen, or is that story ready yet to either be loaded into the prompter or loaded into the media playback device so that we can roll it into the production that we're doing. This person is aware of those things and is kind of like the conductor or the orchestrator. They're not so much a button pusher, because but they really need to be able to know where all the plates are spinning simultaneously, know what those operators are up against individually in order to call those assets together and then call them at the appropriate time. Uh, Another person we've got on here is the talent. I think the icon is appropriate, but typically this is the person that is kind of on screen, 1 to 2 people that are going to be on camera that typically would be reporting the news. So in this case, you'll have your students that would be, on camera talent. And, at the upper levels, these are people that are looking more to get into, some sort of journalism or maybe public relations where they're going to be, writing stories and then also, presenting that information on air, so to speak. Here we get into the more of the nuts and bolts, technical stuff, and that begins with the technical director. So this is the one that I think everybody is aware of, and in fact, look at my headset actually even matches the icon I chose. This is the guy that's actually sitting behind what everybody thinks of as being the director of the show. They're also aware of all the assets. More technically, they're aware of where they are in relation to tactilely being able to combine those things together visually to either switch directly between one element and the next, or to create some sort of visual presentation technically to convey information from all the other resources that all the other team members are presenting to them. It all comes down to this one guy technically to sort of visually craft that message. So the technical director role obviously is very important. Next, we've got audio. This is fairly self-explanatory, but this person's role is typically to mic up people in the studio, make sure all that's working the way that it should, and then generally to color the combination of sound elements necessary to make successful production. So the icon represents an audio mixer. We've got one of those inside of our software. We'll talk about that a little bit. And this one I had a little bit of a struggle with because the last time that I was doing this, the role was actually what I would call tape operator, and which is a role that I had for some time. But that was so long ago now. I think if I was to go into a classroom and talk to kids about tape, they would all look at me like I had a third eye in the middle of my head because nobody has any idea what tape is anymore. So I decided to adjust this slightly and really call it the media operator. But this is those people that are taking, taking and organizing the pre-produced packages that are going to be rolled in during a production and somehow either arranging them and or queuing them and playing them back for air so the technical director can be responsible for switching. So there's a lot riding on this person's shoulder because a large majority of when that talent is not on air is going to be on them to make sure that the right asset is making it to screen at the right time and the production's coming together the way that it should. Next, we've got camera operators, and this can really mean a couple of different things, and we'll discuss that. But essentially, this is what's capturing talent in the studio or out in the field, and making those signals available to the production. And then we've got CG and graphics. This is your textual information that's going to come on screen, whether it's name supers or statistical information or some sort of supplemental information that's going to reinforce the story that's being told. This person's role is to make sure the appropriate templates are being selected for the type of information and that those templates are populated with the appropriate information at the right time. So again, very important to making a professional show come together. And finally, talent wouldn't have much to say or wouldn't remember everything that they could possibly say in an entire newscast that's scripted anyways, without the help of a prompter operator or teleprompter operator. So this is really the person that sets the pace for the read that the on-air talent is reading. And we've got tools that incorporate into this area now as well. So let's dig into that. Everybody knows that when we think about a Tricaster in a production environment, the thing that we think of primarily is the technical director. So in essence, really what they're thinking about is the person that's sitting behind the Tricaster, something that looks a little bit more, like this. This is the interface that they're seeing. What I want you guys to grasp here, because I'm going to be jumping around through some windows to demonstrate some of this functionality here, is that what I'm showing you, or the way that I'm illustrating this, is really going to be to illustrate multiple roles that actually will take place across a couple of, several different machines or PCs that are all networked together in the environment so that the production can come together. But the important thing is that in this case, even from a technological underpinning, the Tricaster is the hub of all this. It's where all the processing of this is happening. What we're talking about, right, is how do we delegate roles out from this one interface across your team members so that you can educate multiple people, right? It's not really reliant on one person at a time sitting in the chair. and everybody gets, to rotate through the positions and get the full experience of what it means to be on a production team. So the technological underpinning is the TriCaster, and the show switching and visual production does happen there. But let's move on to some of the other roles that we're talking about. Now, I'm not going to talk so much about the producer because we don't have anything there. And I'm not going to talk so much about the talent because we really don't offer anything in that particular area. Not that we're not talented, but not the on-screen talent that we're talking about here. All right. So in this case, oops, if I come back to my appropriate slide here, let's talk first about audio. And I'll do that again in the context. Oops, if I come back here. Let's talk first about audio. I probably should have shown you that. I'm going to do that in the context first of the TriCaster. So I'll come back to the TriCaster user interface and expose, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, that we have an audio mixer. So if you guys aren't running the latest up-to-date version of the TriCaster software, you might notice that my audio mixer button has been moved slightly over to the side here in the user interface. So there's just a little bit of a slight adjustment there. But at heart, it's still the same audio mixer that we've known to come and love. Again, the great thing from a TriCaster's single operator perspective is great. I've got those tools at my fingertips as the person operating it, and I can reach over and do this. What I want to talk about again is how do we incorporate this into a group environment? And so we can do that a couple of ways, but the way I'm going to illustrate today is through a technology called Live Panel. Live Panel is a web browser-based application, which is a companion to TriCaster, so that you can start to delegate these tools out. So it's one of the things I'll refer to many times during this discussion. So to do that, I'm actually going to switch my view over so that you can see both my TriCaster in sort of a window-wise view using a tool called NDI Studio Monitor. And then to the left, I'm going to switch over to a view of Live Panel. So again, I've got two windows here. Each one is representing, again, two different workstations, or the TriCaster being one workstation and a touchscreen tablet being another. I'm going to reach over to this web browser, so widely compatible with a lot of different devices, and just pull up the audio mixer. When I do that and we start to adjust it, I should be able to grab this slider, and as I make the adjustment, maybe audio mixer 2, if I'm looking at the right one, there we go. It's just off screen a little bit there. But I can grab audio mixer 2, and you can see that across the network, as my remote audio person, I'm able to now take that responsibility away from the director and handle the mixing of the various audio signals. Here are my levels you see bouncing on screen here. And I believe you guys should be seeing this. Let me just double check that you guys are seeing that there. Yep, good. Go back here. The audio levels that you're seeing bouncing here are the same audio levels that you see inside of the mixing environment inside of the TriCaster, and the sliders follow along. The Live Panel interface does support multi-touch. So if you had a typical touchscreen computer monitor or a tablet, if you were to grab multiple sliders at the same time, you can actually gesturally adjust those. So again, first delegation of responsibility across the roles of the production team is that Live Panel can hand off the audio mixer, again, leave the director more focused on crafting the rest of the show. Moving back for a second to the old PowerPoint portion of the presentation, let me jump to the next area. This is the media operator. And a lot rides on this person's shoulder, as I said, because when you're not looking at on-camera talent, what you are looking at is something that this person is directly responsible for delivering. So a lot of times in preparation for any kind of newscast or something you're going to train your students is they're going to go out and write and shoot stories, and they're going to edit those stories together, and they're going to deliver them as packages that are files that will typically, in most cases, end up as files inside the TriCaster in an area known as digital disc recorders. So if I switch back to the TriCaster user interface here for a sec, and I look at it so that I can see it, I can grab DDR1 and DDR2 here, and you can see that I've got elements loaded in. So again, I've got all these controls, and there are many ways I can automate the workflow from a single operator standpoint in TriCaster. But again, when we're talking about how do I train a group for responsibilities that they might you need to have in the real world, how again do I delegate this responsibility? So let me go back again to my desktop and pull up my good friend Mr. Live Panel. We'll go back to the home screen, and now think about, now I've had two people, my director and my audio operator. Now let's add another tablet or PC to this equation, because this third PC can also tap into the live panel interface of the Tricaster. So I can start to build out an entire team, again, with the Tricaster as the hub, but these people all contributing. And in this area, I'm going to go into the Media tab. Media tab is going to give me a graphical representation where I can go ahead and actually I'll punch DDR2 up on my output here for a sec. And as I do that, I have the capability in here of rearranging my clips. I can play and stop my clips by drag to rearrange these. The same thing that I'm doing in terms of rearranging the media here, and in fact, probably what you guys should be seeing if I'm not showing it to you. No, I am showing it to you. I just don't have enough screen real estate to see all this stuff at the same time and show it to you, is the ability to storyboard my media assets. So typically the show that you're doing is going to have a rundown and stories are going to happen in a particular order. So this would really be the order in which the packages are going to be executed during runtime. But if for whatever reason, somebody calls an audible and something's rushed in at the last minute, and I can simply select that story. You can see that as I'm making the selections, again, from this remote workstation, I'm essentially queuing that story up for the director, and it would be ready to play. Now, again, I'm doing this live on air. That's not really the way that you would do it in production, but I do that just to illustrate the fact that I have that full capability from this remote interface in a team-based environment. Additionally, you might find yourself in an instance where there is some completely late breaking information that needs to be included into a production. So if we look closely at what I've got going on in the Tricaster user interface, you'll see that one of the inputs that I've got routed in, I relabeled edit bay. That's because I'm actually taking this input, I've routed it directly from, again, on my network, a copy of Adobe Premiere that someone is running where they're editing the story. So typically, right, the last phase of that when somebody's editing is that they're going to take that whole thing, package it up, render it out as a file, and then hand it off. That takes time, and sometimes you don't have time to do that. The story needs to go on air now. Assuming that the editor or the producer okays the content. Quite literally, another way that I can do this, if I bring up Premiere, is that with this story directly routed, which is my input number 6, I can take that to air, but across the network, if I start to scrub this, what you'll see is that I'm making changes inside of Adobe Premiere, and that's actually capable of going directly out to production out on the Tricaster at the same time. So for really, really fresh material where I don't have time to make a file, quite literally, I can hit play from the timeline. And as I do that, I'm getting outputs directly back into the Tricaster environment again. So this is the media wrangler. This is your edit bay. All of it's talking and feeding to production for that supplemental material that really makes the production come together. So we've got pre-canned material that's been pre-produced. We also have the capability of using material that's live right up to the last second in terms of production again. All right, so let's stop you Premiere for now. We'll meet you down. I'm going to come back over here to the old PowerPoint so we can move on to the next person, which is back there, input number 7, and then I'll full screen that out for you so that you guys can see it. Next role to discuss would be the CG operator. Thought about this one a little bit, and everybody thinks about this as having kind of a standalone CG operator or CG tool that's off to the side. We certainly support workflows like that with our own live text application, which you could get and run on a secondary PC. So that's one possible workflow. A secondary one we have is by using something called, using something called data linking. So let me show you a little bit about how this works again by coming back to the user interface of my Tricaster. Again, now we're talking about an exterior operator in the Tricaster, in the entire ecosystem that's going to be able to assist the director. So in the Tricaster user interface or the TD's interface, just so that I can show you what's going on here, I'm going to punch up my graphics 2 bin, and you can see that inside of this bin, I actually have 3 different graphics templates loaded. Okay, looking at this graphic, when I expose this out, you can see that the text in here, I've literally gone in and changed the text to say specifically what I want to say. I've changed that template to Alex Udell. So that's fine. The director, the person switching the show, has the capability of doing that. But in a larger production, do you want that person saddled with that responsibility? Probably not. It doesn't feed into the teamwork metaphor. So what I've got here in my second template, just so we know, if I come and edit this, is it says Alex Udell, but when I click on it, what you see here is the text actually has a strange set of characters where I've got a % followed by super name. So this is what's called a data link key that we support, which means that now in this title, I have the capability of changing this data from the outside. So let's go back to our good old friend, Mr. Live Panel again, so that we can see this, but let me bring up on screen so that you can see it. And I got to move over here so I can grab it. Let me key this over the top of my video here so that you can see that when I make the change, it actually will happen. So again, on another, probably a laptop in this case, again, attached to the network, feeding this production, this person would also be looking at a couple of different tabs. One's going to be the media tab. And you can see that what's important here is that, again, if I look at the graphics 2 tab, which corresponds to the graphics 2 that we saw again on the network in the Tricaster, is as I make these selections, I can queue up the graphics that the TD is going to use. So simply by selecting these, right, over here, I have the capability of making the selection for what template is going to be used next. So again, taking that extra responsibility off of the director's hands, and again, being able to be responsive in sort of a nonlinear kind of way when curveballs get thrown your way. The second thing that we can do in here is we modify those data links. So we've got a tab inside of Live Panel called Data Links. And I've set up these custom data links. If I scroll down here, the ones I created were super name and super title. So right now, with that on screen, if I come over here literally and say what I want to do is change this to say Smith, and I update that, then my graphic is actually going to update in real time. Now, I'm doing this on air. You wouldn't normally do it that way, but just to show that you can change these things dynamically within the Tricaster environment. And this applies to a couple of different layers of graphics capabilities that we've got in the system, not just the live text, which are sort of the static elements that you're applying here, but these data links can also be tied into our live graphics initiative, which is based on an Adobe pipeline of Photoshop and After Effects. So now, if you think in a wider scope, we can really start to get people involved from designing the look and feel of your, your show in tools that, as part of a design curriculum, those elements can be brought in as part of a production curriculum, and all of these things can start to be tied together into a cohesive curriculum across the board, to make the productions come together. So some really nice capability there in terms of what we can do with dynamic looking and graphics, and again, stratifying that production around a team. Coming back here again for a second, let me take you guys back to the presentation. Let me pull my my own CG off of that, so we don't need to be looking at that anymore. And let's move on to next step in the production, which is camera. So typically what you're going to find here, right, I think it's still in most educational environments, is that you're going to find that people are probably going to want to have manned cameras in a studio setting where people are actually standing behind the cameras and cameraman. I'll tell you, increasingly, if you're training people to get ready for the real world, manned cameras in the studio are happening less often, and what you're finding is that you're going to have sort of PTZ style cameras that are happening in a studio, and those cameras are going to be controlled remotely. Now, of course, NewTek makes PTZ cameras that work very well with our equipment. They're using our technology called NDI, which stands for Network Device Interface, but essentially it's a network-based device camera, which is going to feed a production in. So to give you an idea of what that looks like, here I can go out, and I'm just going to go back to my monitor again if I actually show you my screen so that you can see it. I'm going to go back to my monitor again. I'm just going to actually pull up the output of my new 4K cam. This is the UHD camera that we just recently introduced. So when I do this, again, I do this simply to show that A, I can pull it in over the network, but B, it's also feeding the Tricaster, and C, this is going to give me some on-screen controls for actually controlling the camera, right? I can go a little faster there, and recalling presets. So if I go back to number 1, it's going to take it back to that position. I can go to position number 2, and then earlier today, hopefully there's nothing incriminating on my phone, but if I go in a little bit closer, I should be able to go to position number 3, which I set up to be a little bit closer to my phone screen so that I can show people the capabilities of some stuff that we were doing with phones and Tricaster technology. So all that a long way about of saying is that from a camera operator perspective, right? Again, it might not necessarily be somebody in the studio, or if you've got a small class, or you're trying to train people for more of the type of thing that they're going to, reach out and realize in the studio environment in the real world, is more often they're going to be sitting in front of some sort of control panel with a joystick so they can make adjustments to camera technology. Now, in our case, we could get a dedicated, PTZ joystick for it, but we also have the capability of introducing something like this. I'll make it so where you guys can see it, but this is really just a gaming joystick that I bought. It's wireless, it's USB, and I can actually use that with a copy of Studio Monitor to control cameras. No batteries at the moment, so I apologize for that. But those types of joysticks can be a very cost-effective way for educators to get involved with the idea of, okay, now I'm controlling one or more cameras remotely with these joysticks so that I can bring those into production. So studio camera control, again, can be done relatively inexpensively compared to what you might think. And it would, starts to get people ready for the type of productions they would be doing in the real world. And then finally, we come back to the old PowerPoint presentation here from my side. The last tool I'll bring in here is the all-important teleprompter operator. People wouldn't have anything to say, or they'd run out of things to say pretty quick if they weren't, helped by the dog-edged teleprompter operator to keep up with what they're saying. So let's go back to my user interface so that I can show you this here real quick of the Tricaster, and then we'll come back over here so that you guys can see it. In the lower right-hand portion of the Tricaster UI, we've added a new tab called Automation. Depending on the model of Tricaster that you've got, sometimes this will be included directly, or sometimes this might actually be an add-on. So, whatever configuration of the Tricaster that you end up with, talk to Clark and the team at Learning Labs. They can help you determine, how you can get hold of this tool. But essentially, it's really a couple of things. The main thing I was going to show you here is that really inside of the software, we've got prompting capabilities. So if I go back to my desktop, I can show you not only that you can see my prompter inside of the Tricaster user interface, but if I add a new instance of Studio Monitor, I can actually route that out. So again, a tablet or some sort of PC in the studio, I can grab this and say, let's have the output of my Mini. We'll grab the prompter output, and now I've got that available. And so as I make the adjustment in here and someone is operating the prompter, now my talent is reading along with that. And that's where basically the spoken content of the show is coming from. Another important aspect of this is that while this is happening on the Tricaster, it is possible to add to that, and actually I have a nice little picture here that I did, as a contour shuttle wheel can be added to the Tricaster so that someone can have a more traditional prompting control experience with a jog shuttle wheel. Again, very inexpensive to add it to a configuration like this. And that can actually also be set up so that it was extended so that while the TD is doing it, you've actually got a dedicated person on your team that is the prompter operator that's responsible for that job. So from my standpoint, I hope what I've been able to accomplish is to show you how we can, as let's go back up here, over here, sort of as the team, right, really take advantage of showing you everything that NewTek has to offer just from the hub of the Tricaster out across your entire team. So we really do work well in a team environment, and it is a comprehensive solution. So I'm going to pause briefly. I'm just going to ask Tom quickly, how are we doing on time? I did want to toss over to my coworker to talk a little bit about sports applications, if we're good. So are we okay? Okay, so with that, forgive me, I don't know the methodology and teams to hand off. So Jeremy, if you have that capability, can you take over? Or Tom, if you need to hand it over, can you please do that?
Sure, let me see what,
and what I did is, Jeremy, you're now the live, and Alex, I just muted you. It goes off of voice.
Gotcha. All right. So I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen. Wow, my audio is pegging right now. Hold on a second. I just noticed that my volume. All right, so kind of building off what Alex was talking about as far as operations go, a lot of things still translate well from the regular studio environment over to a sports application. And one thing to point out, the live panel that Alex was talking about and things like that, when you're segmenting operators, the other thing that we have capabilities of with our data link is host disabled participant screen sharing. Hold on a second. And you're muted. Well, okay, while that's being worked on, we'll talk about how you can use data link with scoreboards. There are a wide variety of scoreboards that can output a data stream that we can then see and import into live graphics. So like the data link stuff that Alex was talking about and being able to share and do uploads, we have that capability with scoreboard technology. A lot of Daktronics boards can work with this. There's a few other companies out there that make scoreboards that we have the capability of interfacing with. That way you don't have to worry about, in the old school days, having a camera and just shooting the scoreboard and bringing that as a video source. You can actually bring that input straight from the operator. That way that can populate automatically. You don't have to do anything, especially with the clock and stuff like that. So let's see if I can get, there we go. All right. Make sure I start sharing. So back with the regular interface, what Alex had shown before, those still apply. With lower thirds, now that I'm bringing on a custom graphic using that live graphic technology that the plug in with the premium access and things like that, we can trigger certain graphics to populate automatically, give that animated look based on the templates already pre-built for us. Now, what we're talking about here is we have an overlay where you've got the template where you can add your team logos. So whether or not it's home or guest, you can change the name. You've got the clock, you've got the score. This is a very basic score graphic that we can use and talk about. So I've got other inputs here. So this is the other section of live panel that Alex was talking about before, is we have our own scoreboard tab where you can pick and customize the sports that you're using. So you can have the basketball, baseball, basketball, cricket for some reason, I don't know, but we have it. Soccer, hockey, football. There's some other templates that people have made third party that can still work with this, but these are the basic ones that we have. So for a basketball game, you'll see the traditional score look where you've got home and away, the periods, the fouls, bonuses, timeouts, game clock, shot clock. These are independent data streams that you can pick off and populate live inside of a score graphic. Now, we just happen to have some basic ones already assigned based on our own internal templates. So like for the home and guest, I can populate those graphics from here. So anything that's already loaded into the Tricaster, and you can see, yeah, I've been playing around with some Star Wars stuff with my kids. If I go down and find, there we go. Let's just use New Tech as home, and we'll do VizRT as guests. So again, simple graphics that are already scaled appropriately that we can then load into these templates. And that way it just shows up. It's very simple. It's very easy to operate and can be flexible. So if you got multiple games in a day, you already have your graphics loaded, then you can populate as needed which teams are up. And then if you want to change the names, that's fine. Same rules apply with live text as before. I would not do it live, but it'll just show you how quickly it will populate as you update the text. So we got New Tech and VizRT. So if you don't have the connection to the scoreboard, and again, that ranges quite a bit from third-party boxes that plug straight into the control of the scoreboard versus a actual feed off the board itself via the network. There's several different ways to bring that content in. If you don't have that capability, or if you're doing it remotely and you don't want to worry about hooking things up, this is a great way to then do it. Because as the game clock can be reset, you'll notice how quickly I can start and stop that. So that is a great way for having an operator usually on the floor at the court so they can watch. And as soon as that timeout, that whistle happens, they can watch and see and time it just accordingly. Now, there's not a great way to update. It is possible. But again, the start and stop is the best. And then notice the shot clock over here can run as well. But you get a score come in, easy. You can just hit it one at a time, or for a foul shot, or if it was a three-pointer, you can click just the number 3, and that will populate automatically. So it's a great way to keep a running tab of the score accurately and quickly, so that way it matches the game action. Now, I just have score, name of team, and the clock currently running in this graphic. But if we add those other data link markers into this lower third, then yes, we can add everything else to it. Or if you have a separate one, so you can have your main lower third bug that's just doing teams and the score, that's fine. And then, timeout or halftime, you can populate with the full sheet and then have all the additional information necessary for your scores. So it's a really nice, easy way, simplified operation. The other thing for sports is with our products, we do have the capability to have internal replay. So I'll go ahead and get rid of my lower third. Now this does require premium access. It goes past the normal point of recordings that your systems come with. But with PA, now notice I have my game cameras on inputs 3 and 4. But these are my replay cams. I've already assigned that. So if I go into the gear and show you, under capture, you have this capability of record plus instant replay. So this record will give you an ISO of that input, and instant replay now gives you that replay control inside the Tricaster interface at the same time. So now we're showing, we got a shot, dribbles in, and we got a steal. I want to back that up. I hit the replay icon underneath. Actually, I forgot to start recording before. So if I switch to, let's just go get camera 4 and see where we're at. Okay, we're still kind of in a dead ball scenario. Oh, yeah, it backed it up. There's my clip. I can do a show on program, animate the last 10 seconds, gives me my countdown indicator, and then we'll jump back out. So I'm using my autoplay features. Well, not really autoplay, but I'm using the show on program features where I can automate that replay wipe, because if you notice right here, it still says for cut. So if I'm switching cameras, I can still do the simple cut application and cut between cameras. But when it's time for that replay, I can now come back, back it up. Now I'm ready for the shot. I run the replay, show on program, runs me my 10 seconds, and it cuts back. But I miscalculated that time. I wasn't paying attention to the game action, which is not good if you're an actual operator. And me being a freelance TD, I kind of need to know how to do this. Most of the time I can do without much issue. Talking and then displaying it is kind of the same time. So again, we got the shot going around. That's on camera 4. It was a missed shot, but I want to see that replay anyways. I'll back it up. There's the missed shot. We got the loose ball. There's the rebound. We're going the other way. Time's back out. Now we're back live to game action. So it's very simplistic. It's not grandiose. You can't get your melts like you can if you're doing a full-on replay production, but it's a great way to add simple replays to your shows or to your games that are going on in a normal high school application. So this works for basketball. Football is a little bit easier because it's not as fast-paced. So for a single operator, you can do it pretty effectively. Baseball, same thing. Basketball, it's a little bit tricky to do it as a single operator. It just takes a whole lot of time, a whole lot of understanding and patience. To everyone being on the same board is like, hey, I have to switch the show, plus I also have to man replay at the same time. It's a lot, but it's doable. Other sports, it is kind of a little more simplistic. It's not something that we can easily export as an live panel separately, like with the other operators, like with the media players, with the audio and things like that, stuff that Alex was showing you. But for some sports, this could be a very, very good way to add additional high-level professional look to your recordings, to your games as you're moving forward, and especially in the high school realm. So I guess if you want to turn over for any questions, either regarding the replay features internal. So this is actually on a Tricaster Mini 4K that I'm doing this on. So you don't have to have the full TC1 to do it. It will work on the TC1 as well, the 410 Plus. But yes, what I'm using for this replay, this game action, is on a Mini 4K right now. Tom, you got anything? Or
Yeah, I was going to ask. I noticed that in your DDR1 there, that your replay clips are still showing that they're recording. They are still there. You can go in and let's say that in a halftime or what have you, you could go in and tweak that if you needed to. Correct? So
Correct,
if you
because
need, like,
the
5
clips are
seconds.
still showing as recording because I'm still recording the entire game action. So that way, you can go back, build a halftime reel of highlights as you go. So you've already tagged these as replays. Now you can go back and tweak if necessary, cut them, because you're only limited to the duration as you set up here. So you have 3, 5, 8, and 10 seconds to build your replays during normal game action. So once the time comes for, okay, now I have to do a highlight reel, I may need a little bit more on the head and tail of that clip. So that's why, like you said, you pointed out that it's still recording. That way you can go back in here and readjust. You can't deal too much with, well, this one was because I started late. But you'll see here, the growing file is I can go earlier, change my endpoint, and same on the out. Because right now I just had that regular 10-second interval, but I can back it up and change my out after the fact. So yeah, this first clip, not great because I started recording too late. But all the subsequent ones, yes, you'll see I'll have the growing file size. So forward and back of that clip, I can readjust, change my in and out points, and then send that off. It's also great for social media publishing for highlight reels because, again, I'm just segmenting these clips here in the DDR. Once I have that changed, then yes, I can go up and where is add to export media? There it is. So now I've got a great highlight. I can put that in my export media bin. So that's saved for when, it's either halftime or after the game. I can then export that straight to social media to show here's the game's highlights for today. So I have a way to build a meld after the fact. I can't really do it live, but in between or a stoppage in time, if you've got a long break period, then yes, you can go back in and start to edit. And because you're playing it inside the DDR, at that point you can still rearrange. Find your clips, change the order that you want to. You can add the effects in between. So now you're treating your master clip list of highlights as a true DDR list where I can add my effects, I can add my graphics, and then export that either after the game or then play it back during halftime or break in action. And I can then change and go to my other DDR bins if necessary. So if this is first half, we have a long break between first and second quarters or first and second periods, then yes, I can go to a different bin and same rules apply. Now I'm loading them into a separate bin now in the second half. Okay, that was a missed shot, but I want to back that up anyways. So now I have that capability. I've loaded it into a secondary bin so I can organize my clips that way as well. And I don't have much footage to play with, so you can see it kind of jumps around and shows the same stuff over and over again. But at least you kind of get the general idea of what you can do with the replay that comes with the Tricasters themselves. In fact,
I answered a question that was asked off in the chat. Was for the live panel operation, can it be from an iPad if somebody had that? I'd say the answer is yes, although I would highly recommend that be a wired connection and not rely on wireless connectivity. A lot of times you'll see motion media moving clips inside of
Alex, did we lose you?
I think we lost Alex. But yeah, Richard asked that question about using the live panel on iOS devices.
Yeah, so dedicated Wi-Fi, I would not recommend additional people join that or have a public Wi-Fi for that because you get a lot of users. That can then bring down the overall network speed and the capabilities on that. But yes, you can do it from an iPad. I would just make sure it's a dedicated Wi-Fi network just for the Tricaster operation. So if there's a way, especially in the school network, if you can isolate that or have IT departments set up a dedicated Wi-Fi just for that operation, that'd work a whole lot better. And also dedicated devices. Yes, you can do BOD or BYOD. But dedicated device, because then your settings are the same. You're not having 15 other apps running at the same time, because iOS does have that issue. If you have multiple devices running at the same time on a device, it can throttle your speed on the device itself. So from an iPad or even a Microsoft Surface Touch or something like that, where you can do it wirelessly, limit what those devices are actually doing. So where it's just at that time, a unitasker. It's just for controlling the live panel. And then after the show or whatever, now you can go back use it for whatever you want to.
Anybody else got any other questions?
Yeah, Alex said he had to reboot.
That has been we've had lots of issues today. Clark, are you?
I'm here.
Excellent. Anything you want to say as we wait on maybe Alex coming back, and anything you need to add?
No, I mean, our company, of course, provides the local representation support for Tricaster products across the Southeast, and if we can be of any assistance on putting together a program, I can be reached there. If you can see that, I guess it's backwards to you guys. But just call me anytime. My number is 770-773-0762, and I'll help you any way I can.
Excellent. Anybody have any other questions, comments, concerns, complaints?
So you guys know how to reach us. Necessary. Alex is your local resource. I'm sort of like a nationwide backup. So, we tag team regions here and there. So questions, yeah, you can always reach out to us as well. So.
Steve, you got something? You look like you were trying to talk to us. Okay. All right. Is Alex getting back on? Should we wait? I don't want him to go through the struggle if.
Texting him.
So, Tom, your plan is to push this video back out during Camp T&I?
Yeah, we're pre-recording these now to keep the groups kind of small. We've got 106 people totally registered for T&I this year.
Wow.
So what I'm going to do is push them back out as unlisted YouTube videos and run them through some accountability stuff. PlayPosit is who we're going to use to get the watch time for each person. So yeah, they'll all have access to it.
As you know, our company represents several manufacturers, and I'm trying to coordinate other video sessions for automotive, welding, construction, graphics, etc. On graphics, my Roland rep, they're working on some type of a recorded session that I can send to whoever. Would you be the best person to get these videos to for these other programs, or deal with the individual coordinators of those programs?
Either way, I mean, I communicate with them. Matthew White is probably Matthew and Tim would be the two to start with. But if you need more, I can definitely.
I've been talking a lot to Matthew as well. I think he sent a survey out to the group or groups to see what they would like to see for a workshop. So yeah, I've been talking to him already.
Gotcha. Yeah, it would be. Matt, who I'll get. If you get one of the three of us, we'll get it out.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Jeremy, did Alex say he's trying to get back in or no?
Yeah, he's down for the count. So
okay. So
thanks everyone for sitting in and listening to us. And like I said, any questions, you know how to reach out and find us.
Excellent. Thank all of you guys. Thank you for presenting, Jeremy and Clark, for making this happen. And please don't ever hesitate to reach out. These guys are all super awesome and a ton of help for all of us. So have a great weekend and have a good day.